In the history of biogeography, we will be discussing about the history of island biogeography. So, what is an island? And of course, the biogeography will of island will be called island biogeography. The island is a small piece of land which is surrounded by ocean, and it would be having some sort of geographical division, and which will separate it from the mainland. And due to that, the geographical distribution, it will be having different set of animals and plants from the mainland. So George Forster was the first person to identify particular features of island biogeography. He said that fewer species than that the islands have fewer species than the mainland, but the number of species varies according to the size and ecological diversity of the land. So he identified a pattern among the not only the types but also the number of the species that are present on an island. Another scientist, Candolle, pointed out that the age, climate, and degree of isolation of an island are also factors that affect the biodiversity it contains, and whether or not it was volcanic would also affect the diversity of its flora. So he said that if it is volcanic, then there will be different disastrous events in which its flora will be destroyed and it will rebound, and the biodiversity will take charge again. So in this way, he said that the history of an island, how long it's been there, will also affect the diversity of an island. The sheer variety and volumes of work was published by the Alfred Wallace. And of course, we know about the Alfred Russel Wallace, who was a dealer and naturalist in the natural specimens of the plants and animals. So he had vast collection in the Amazon, and based on his research, he had, based on his observation, he also gave rise to the theory of evolution through the natural selection along with the Darwin. And then there is the person, Philip Darlington of the New York. He said that the larger islands contain a greater number of individuals and a greater diversity of species than the smaller islands. So larger islands may have more size, and due to that sheer size, they may have more surface area to the sun, as well as more resources for organisms to live. And due to that, they may have more habitat spaces for the organism, resulting in more biodiversity. So the species diversity increasing by a factor of 10 for every doubling of the island area. If you double the island area, the species diversity will increase tenfold. And then there is the mathematical analyses. So this starts a new debate whether the mathematics is involved in the study of biogeography of the island. So there is the theory of island biogeography, which was published in 1967, written by the two American biologists, the mathematical ecologist Robert MacArthur and the taxonomist biogeographer Edward Wilson. So both of them gave rise to the theory of island biogeography. So the Swedish worker Olaf Arrhenius in 1921 and the American Eugene Monroe in 1948 and Frank Preston in 1962 had noted the relationship between the area of an island and the number of species that it contains. So are the predictions of the earlier scientists, they gave them the mathematical uh, basis of those predictions that of course this is true. And then there is the publication of another book, The Song of the Dodo. Is an extinct bird and who was found on an island. And in this book, the island biogeography was explained in detail. In an age of extinction, that means the organisms which were living on the island, the arrival of new invader species as well as including the humans, how does it affects the island biogeography that was explained in this book by the American science writer David Quammen. The story of the rise of the theory and of the later mounting wave of criticism has been told in the book, the theory of the island biogeography, is also the is history of that theory, or the story how it developed, and having mounting evidence, it was explained in this book as well. So MacArthur and Wilson nevertheless revolutionized the study of island biogeography, for they led a way in introducing mathematical techniques and in providing a standard format for analysis and comparison. So before MacArthur and Wilson, all were the observational studies. Now we have a new wave in which the mathematical science is established, and we are studying the biogeography on the mathematical basis, and this revolutionized the island biogeography. The ecology of island faunas and flora is far more fragile than that of the continents. So if we see the continents, they are large piece of land. If an organism is less in number or very much decrease in number, the same type of organism in another area can migrate to that area, and they can keep the population stable. But that is not true in case of islands. If an organism dies or becomes extinct on an island, there is no stocks of the population which can replenish those organisms, and that's why it is much more fragile. And same is the case with the pest species or the invader species, the species that invade a particular area and may affect the local flora and fauna, and they will be more devastating on the islands rather than on the continents. So natural laboratories of evolutionary change, we can observe in real time how a evolutionary change happens. For example, if there are two nearby islands, the same species which was originally present on the same island would be, if that island was broken into two, we can see that how the same species diverged into the two different species. So these are the natural laboratories of evolutionary change, and contain a high proportion of the biotic diversity then that we need to conserve. So the islands, these are sort of having a lot of biodiversity as compared to the continents, and they are much more diverse, and that's why we need to conserve these. For example, the New Guinea contributes only 3% of the world's land area, but it contains some 10% of its species of the terrestrial organism. So New Guinea, 3% of the land area, but it gives out the 10% of the total organism that live on the surface of the earth. So that's how important the the islands are, and we need to conserve the island biogeography.